Chapter 101. Join you. Even Noah couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. You want me to destroy the Tokyo area with you? Only the Tokyo area? Li Changyin first said this sentence with a deep meaning, then immediately let out a low laugh again. President Noah, as far as I know, a year ago, you used your private property to buy cheap land in the outer area, built a large number of houses, schools, hospitals, and even research facilities there, and took in all the cursed children and established fairy tale. Noah didn't answer, but the gaze he looked at Li Changyin with became colder and colder. But Li Changyin didn't seem to notice Noah's gaze, and continued to speak. Fairy tale became famous after it was first established and entered people's sight, because no one thought that there would be such a stupid person who would provide shelter for a group of children who could turn into monsters at any time. As everyone knew, once a human was infected with the protozoan virus, which was best at modifying DNA, would transform a living human into a monster in a very short time. There was only one kind of human being that was an exception. That was the cursed child. However, that didn't mean that the protozoan virus in the accursed child's body would obediently provide them with power, allowing them to become superhumans. The protozoan virus lurking in the accursed child's body was also extremely dangerous. Unlike humans who were directly infected with the protozoan virus in the accursed child who was infected with the protozoan virus from the embryonic stage wouldn't break out all at once. Instead, it lurked in the cursed child's body, slowly modifying their bodies. This naturally allowed the cursed children to obtain self-regenerative abilities and strength that exceeded that of ordinary people. However, the cursed children were also unable to avoid being infected by the protozoa virus. The virus in their bodies was still corroding their bodies. Therefore, the accursed child would sooner or later turn into a protozoan. No one knew how long this process would take. People only knew that once the invasion rate of the protozoan virus in the cursed child's body exceeded 50%, the cursed child would turn into a protozoan and would no longer be able to maintain human form and rationality. This was also the reason why many of the cursed children were willing to become initiators and accept the management of the International Initiator Supervision Organization (ISO), as well as partner with the police. This was because the International Initiator Supervision Institute (ISO) had an agent that could slow down the invasion of the protozoan virus in the cursed child's body to a certain extent. Back then, Noah had put in a lot of effort in order to obtain the formula for the ascension preparation. Otherwise, many of the accursed children in Fairy's Tale would have turned into primitive animals long ago. Why would you want to establish Fairy Tale? I can roughly guess the reason. Li Changyin stood on top of the wall and looked down at Noah. However, in order to make Fairy Tale operate, no matter if it was a success or a failure, President Noah, you must have encountered a lot of difficulties, right? Hearing this, Noah's hand holding the gun slightly tightened. The difficulty Li Changyin was referring to wasn't the difficulty of establishing Fairy Tale or the setbacks he had suffered in the process. Instead, he was referring to the difficulties others had created for him. Let's not talk about the Tendo Chrysanthemum, who originally hated the cursed child, and talk about the plundered generation of the commoners in the Tokyo area. Basically all wanted the cursed child to die, so how could they be willing to let them have a good life? Therefore, when Fairy's Tale was first established, there would be so-called volunteers forming groups almost every day. They would go to the entrance of Fairy's Tale to raise flags and protest. They would curse the existence of Fairy's Tale all day long. There were even some radicals who wanted to sneak into Fairy Tale and specifically sabotage it. Noah knew that for these people who were completely blinded by hatred, it was useless to say anything more. Not to mention, Noah did not have a good impression of these pitiful people who had hateful things to begin with. Therefore, during the 1-year period after Fairy Tale was established, Noah did not know how many times he personally made a move to throw these people back to the city like garbage. For this reason, these people did not stop jumping around. Not to mention the many street protests, they also gathered together from time to time, planning to do something. Because of this, the reason why fairy tale became so famous. Perhaps, these people who paraded on the streets from time to time to give free publicity to fairy tale were also a big reason. And from then on, Noah and fairy tale became known as the shelter of the cursed child. Li Qingyin's words made Noah recall all the things that had happened in the past year in his mind. His grip on the spear tightened. President Noah, I have to say, it's not just me, but many people are surprised that you can still manage fairy tale under such circumstances. Li Qingyin seemed to be reminding him. But, have you not thought of eliminating all these people who only know how to talk and will not get along with you no matter what? Noah did not understand what Li Qingyin was hinting at. He could be considered to have lived in vain. This is the reason why you invited me to join you. This can only be considered the reason why you joined us. Li Qingyin corrected him. And the reason why we invited you is because you are very strong. Oh. Noah curled his lips, a bit of sarcasm appearing in his tone. Are you worried that I will interfere with your plans? This is also one of the reasons. Li Qingyin pressed down on the hat on his head and once again extended his hand towards Noah. Come. Come with me. Let's destroy this world together. Destroy the world. This sentence was like a basin of cold water that was poured on Noah's heart. Immediately after, a thick flame of anger rose in Noah's heart. Destroy the world. Destroy the world that would be as happy as a child when it was repaired and would be extremely happy to meet him. What a joke. Noah slowly raised his head, a pair of eyes that were filled with unprecedented anger. The vast magical power in his body also boiled, turning into a strong wind that rose from Noah's body. If you say what you just said again, I will make you stay here forever. With Noah as the center, a gust of wind formed by mana spread out wildly, blowing away the surrounding ruins and causing them to collapse completely. Li Qingyin and Li Binei Jr.'s pupils constricted at the same time. They raised their hands and blocked in front of them. Their bodies tensed up, and an extremely strong sense of danger rose in their hearts. The nephew and daughter, who could not sense magical power, could only feel a strong aura locking onto them, telling them that Noah's words were true. You. Li Qingyin could not hide the shock in his voice. Who exactly are you? Father. Father. Li Binei Jr.'s crazed and bloodthirsty appearance changed. Her face was filled with fear as she tugged at Li Qingyin's clothes. We will die. We will die. Li Qingyin's eyes flashed with uncertainty as he gritted his teeth. Let's go. Without any hesitation, Li Qingyin and Binei Jr. leaped up and disappeared from the scene. The wind gradually stopped. Noah, who was standing alone in the ruins, closed his eyes tightly and allowed the rain to splash on his body. He did not speak for a long time. Chapter 102. In the dark conference room, a deathly stillness pervaded the air. Led by Xingtianzi, all the top officials in the Tokyo area were gathered in the headquarters. Looking at the real-time display in front of them, they all had ashen faces. Taking a closer look, the image displayed on the large monitor was a hellish scene. In a word, it was a pile of corpses covered in blood. In the middle of the blood and corpses that had just died, a man in a tuxedo with a mask and a little girl with two kodachi stood there. Although there was not a single drop of blood on them, there was no doubt that they were the ones who had caused this hellish scene. In the dark conference room, many officials' faces turned ashen. They covered their mouths and looked like they wanted to vomit but didn't dare to. Xingtianzi's originally flawless face seemed to have become a bit paler, but he still stared at the large screen in front of him without moving his gaze for a moment. Only Chrysanthemum Prime Minister maintained his usual expressionless appearance from beginning to end. He was not affected by the bloody scene and was still calm. Just a minute ago, the high-ranking officials present had personally witnessed the scene of the police officers lying all over the ground provoking the father and daughter pair. In the end, all of them were attacked by the other party and fell one after another, dyeing the ground red with their own blood. Among these police officers, there were at least 10 teams that were ranked in the top 1,000. Under such circumstances, a total of 30 teams of police officers almost couldn't last a minute in the hands of Li Qingyin and Li Binei and were all killed. It was easy to imagine how shocked the high-ranking officials were when they witnessed all of this with their own eyes. Sitting at the head of the table, Xing Tianzi was not defeated by the bloody scene and the cruel reality. He adjusted his emotions and forced himself to calm down, then looked at one of the officials. What about the other police officers? Most of them have already set off to the unexplored area where the Leech father and daughter are. The official was sweating as he answered with a somewhat hoarse voice. However, even the first group of police officers to set off will need more than 2 hours to reach the area where the Leech father and daughter are. No matter what, they won't be able to make it in time. When these words came out, a touch of despair appeared on the faces of many officials. An hour ago, the news that Li Qingyin had obtained the legacy of the 7 stars, and was rushing to an unexplored area, preparing to summon the protozoa, Stage V, had reached the ears of the top authorities in Tokyo. Xing Tianzi, who understood that the situation had begun to become irreversible, immediately called for a battle conference. All the top authorities in Tokyo area gathered here to discuss countermeasures while notifying the police companies involved in the operation to pursue the Leech father and daughter. Now, an hour had passed. The fate of the first group of police officers who arrived at the area was presented in front of everyone's eyes. It was only then that everyone realized that they had really underestimated this police team that was originally ranked 134th in the IP rankings. They had also underestimated the difference between 100 police officers and 1,000 police officers. If this continues, the Stage V will arrive in the Tokyo area. At that time, it will. Looking at the big screen in front of him, a senior official spoke hesitantly. Speaking of which, why did Li Qingyin mercilessly kill all the promoters, but not the initiators? Yes. The ones who died were all the promoters in the police team. As for the initiators, they were all knocked out and imprisoned by Li Qingyin and Li Binei Jr. With the Leech father and daughter's personality of killing without blinking, they shouldn't be merciful to children, right? Xing Tianzi naturally also noticed this phenomenon and muttered to himself. I'm afraid he did it too. Before Xing Tianzi could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by an indifferent voice from outside the conference room. To restrain me, right? Following this sentence, the door of the conference room was pushed open. A young man carrying a bag over his shoulder and a piece of paper in one hand walked in as if no one was around. Behind him, a few guards were rushing over, as if they wanted to stop him from entering the conference room. Looking at the young man who suddenly barged in, everyone present couldn't react. Even Xing Tianzi was slightly startled and spoke in surprise. President Noah. It was none other than Noah. With a rare cold expression on his face, Noah didn't pay attention to the people who were staring at him in a daze. He walked straight through the room, came to the front of the conference table, and looked at the screen. He knows that I value the cursed child, so he wants to use those children as hostages to prevent me from personally finding him. Li Qingyin, he really used all kinds of methods, only then did everyone realize what had happened. President Noah, you can't just barge in anywhere. Chrysanthemum Tentong narrowed his eyes and said. This conference room is a place set up for national defense issues. If an ordinary person barges in, it won't end with just a few words of reprimand. Do you understand? Noah glanced at Chrysanthemum Tentong and didn't say anything. He directly placed the piece of paper in his hand in front of the people present. It was a piece of paper with a circle in the middle. The circle was filled with names and seals that were stamped on the outside of the circle. It was just like a joint signature. It was written on the outside of the circle. Everyone's eyes couldn't help but shift to this piece of paper. When they saw the contents of the paper clearly, they all gasped. This was a joint agreement. The purpose was very simple. It was to gather like-minded comrades in activities similar to peasant uprisings. In order to conceal the identity of the mastermind would be drawn in a circle, and the rest of the signatories were all accomplices. Everyone present clearly saw the title of the joint agreement, 7 Stars Inheritance Theft Plan Joint Agreement. Suddenly, everyone's gaze instinctively turned to the person next to him and subconsciously retreated. This person's name was one of the names recorded on the paper. Holy Son of Heaven, your subordinate seems to have something rather interesting. Noah said faintly. I didn't expect that the person secretly acting behind Li Qingyin would instruct Li Qingyin to steal that 7 Stars inheritance and block the information about the location of the 7 Stars inheritance. The person who caused us to be one step behind Li Qingyin and also caused us to fall into this situation is right beside you. How ironic. But thanks to this, I've saved a lot of trouble. The high-ranking official who signed the paper turned pale and shook his head in a daze. No. No. The surrounding people's gazes toward him were filled with sympathy and pity. The Holy Son of Heaven glanced at Chrysanthemum Tentong, and Chrysanthemum Tentong immediately looked coldly at the high-ranking official. Take him away. Why, no. Your Excellency Tentong. I. 2 guards picked up the high-ranking official who was screaming and mercilessly dragged him out of the conference room. Only then did the Holy Son of Heaven look at Noah with a hesitant expression. President Noah, you don't have to explain anything to me. Noah only looked at the big screen in front of him and didn't even turn his head. I don't want to know what tricks you people in power are playing. But... Noah raised his eyes and looked at Chrysanthemum Tentong. If you want to make a move on fairy tale, then you should first consider whether you have the ability to do so. After saying this, Noah turned around and walked out of the conference room, ignoring the extremely oppressive atmosphere behind him. Chapter 103. Ta, light and slow footsteps echoed clearly in the surroundings. Whoosh. The wind carried bursts of sand and dust as it blew forward. It was like a ghost city. The surrounding residences and buildings were still in their original state, but it was obvious that they were beginning to be abandoned. It was not difficult to see that the people who lived here had abandoned the city and fled to the Tokyo area before they were attacked by the protozoa. Of course, although the buildings were in their original state, they were not complete. Some of the walls were already broken. Some of the building materials were also corroded. Sooner or later, this ghost city would be completely turned into ruins and disappear in the long river of history. In such an environment, Noah, with a cloth bag on his left shoulder, strolled forward as if he was taking a stroll. There was not a trace of emotion in his eyes as he kept looking forward. Not long after, a church appeared in front of Noah. In front of the church's entrance, a man in a wine-red tuxedo, a mask on his face, and a tall hat on his head and a young girl in a dress with 2 kodachi on her waist stood there quietly, as if they had been waiting for a long time. They quietly watched Noah's gradually enlarging figure. Whoosh! Another gust of wind blew through the scene. However, this time, the wind did not carry any sand or dust, but instead brought a strong smell of blood, attracting people's attention to the surroundings. It attracted people's attention to the ground that had been painted red by blood and was full of corpses. Oh, in the interior of the church, in a large iron cage, young girls around the age of 10 were lying inside, overlapping each other. Although their eyes were closed, there were soft moans coming out of their mouths from time to time, proving that they had not lost their lives. Ta, the footsteps that echoed in the surroundings slowly dissipated. Noah had stopped and stood 20 meters away from Li Qingyin and Li Qibinei Jr. He looked at the 2 former policemen in front of him who killed without batting an eyelid. His expression was as calm as before, but it made people feel scared. This was especially true for Li Qingyin and Li Qibinei Jr., who had already experienced how terrifying Noah was. They clearly knew that they were definitely no match for Noah. Father. Binei Leech Jr. couldn't help but tug at the corner of Leech Shadow Yin's clothes. There was an extremely obvious fear on his young face. Li Qingyin looked straight at Noah. No one could tell what kind of expression he had under his mask, but he still chose to communicate. I knew you would come, Noah Doria. Then, tell me your choice. Noah's face was as calm as an ancient well, perfectly displaying his ability to control his emotions. Only his deep, dark pupils flashed with a frightening light. Apart from the mastermind, the rest of the people behind you should have all been arrested. Do you still want to continue this boring game? President Noah, don't you understand? Li Qingyin let out an unpleasant laugh. That's not a problem at all. Even if those people all die, it has nothing to do with me. I'm just doing what I want to do. Otherwise, why would I accept their request? What you want to do is the so-called destruction of the world, right? Noah raised his eyes slightly. What's the point of doing that? I'd like to ask you this question. What's the point of doing this? Li Qingyin took a step forward, his voice starting to become agitated. I believe that in this year, you have fully seen how ugly humans are. Even if you stop me now and let the Tokyo area survive, they still won't be grateful to you. They will even feel that it's a shame that they are protected by the cursed child shelter. Why do you still want to protect them? The person who doesn't seem to understand is you, Li Qingyin. Noah closed his eyes for a moment, then suddenly opened them. I don't want to protect the Tokyo area, and I've never had a sense of justice to protect the entire human race. The people of Fairy Tale will only protect one existence, and that is their companions and family. Because my companions and family are in the Tokyo area, that's why I came here. I want to protect them, to protect Fairy Tale. The Tokyo area just happened to become the location of Fairy Tale. Other than that, it has no reason for me to protect it. Noah also took a step forward, his eyes gradually becoming indifferent. Give up, you are no match for me. I won't give up. At this time, Li Qingyin calmed down. I am a product of the new human creation plan. I was born specifically for the purpose of killing. Only by starting a war will the meaning of my existence be proven. For me, a world of constant war is the world where I should exist. Li Qingyin spread out his hands and let out an extremely excited voice. Look! A masterpiece that can destroy the world is about to descend. Li Qingyin's voice had just fallen when Noah's extraordinary sensing ability immediately returned a message, causing Noah to suddenly turn his head and look at the distant seaside. In the next second, the scene that entered Noah's field of vision made Noah begin to doubt his own eyes. What kind of existence is that? This was Noah's first thought. Perhaps it was because of the night, but Noah was unable to clearly see the other party's body color. However, the traces of cracks, the skin full of lumps, and the completely irregular appearance were clearly seen by Noah. Whoa 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 whoa. A long cry resounded through the night sky of the Tokyo area. The head was abnormally large, and there were countless eyes on its body. Its height was definitely measured in units of hundreds of meters. As it moved its body in the sea, it continuously waved its sickle-shaped tentacles, moving at an extremely slow pace in the direction of the Tokyo area. Awesome! Awesome! Li Qingyin seemed to want to hug the terrifying monster as he spread his hands in its direction, his voice full of madness. He looked like a fanatic who believed in an evil god. Noah no longer had the time to pay attention to Li Qingyin. He stared at the huge terrifying creature that was gradually approaching from the other side of the sea and muttered. Stage V Protozoan Scorpio of the Zodiac. War will begin once again. Li Qingyin looked in Noah's direction and bowed deeply. Please enjoy. After saying that, Li Qingyin brought Leech Benet Jr. and leaped up to the top of the church. After a few leaps, they disappeared from Noah's sight. Noah did not pay attention to the departing Li Qingyin. To him, Li Qingyin was not a threat at all. Therefore, Noah focused his gaze on the terrifying creature called Scorpio. After his eyes flickered a few times, he sighed. Fine, let me tell you whether such a monster has the qualifications to destroy this world. It's over. In the battle headquarters, all of the high officials in the Tokyo area looked at the huge terrifying creature that appeared on the screen. They were all in a daze as if they had lost their minds. Seiji's beautiful face did not change in the slightest, but his hands that were placed on his thighs were tightly clenched together. Sweat had already covered his beautiful slender hands. Could it be that the Tokyo area was really going to end like this? Lord Seiji. On the side, Tentong Ju Qing was surprisingly calm. Please make the decision to take refuge. Seiji closed his eyes, but his heart was not calm at all. After struggling for a long time, he finally opened his trembling mouth. Just as Seiji was about to give the order, a cry of surprise sounded in the meeting room. What is that? The extremely sudden cry of surprise caused the group of high officials who had almost fallen into the abyss of despair to shift their gazes and look at the big screen. What happened next was believed to be unforgettable for the rest of their lives. Chapter 104. In the process of chasing the Li Qingyin, the police took a military helicopter to the unexplored area to search for traces of the Li Qingyin. Now, although the Li Qingyin has escaped, the police who were ordered to chase the Li Qingyin still came to the unexplored area under the guidance of the military helicopter. Rentaro and Yen Zhu were one of the police teams. So that's how it is. Standing next to the military helicopter, Rentaro, who had just come down from the helicopter, heard the news from the other side of the phone and smiled bitterly. In the end, is the Tokyo area really going to be finished? On the side, many police officers seemed to have received the news from their respective police companies. They all held their phones and panicked. It was a mess. There was no way to hide this matter. At least, there was no way to hide it from the police companies that were well informed and existed to deal with protozoa. The body of the Scorpio is bigger than any other species. Who knows how many thousands or tens of thousands of species of DNA were mixed to grow to such a degree. In addition, the roar that could almost resound in every corner of the Tokyo area. Who wouldn't be able to discover such an existence? Even from where Rentaro was standing, he could see the huge shadow gradually approaching from the sea. Therefore, Rentaro also understood how terrifying Stage V was when it reached that level of growth. It was one of the 11 terrifying creatures that almost wiped out the entire human race in the world. In order to match its huge body that was hundreds of meters tall, its body was so hard that ordinary steel couldn't compare to it. Moreover, it wasn't affected by the pyrolite. There were probably no more than 5 weapons in the world that could deal with it. Not to mention, the regeneration ability of the Stage V protozoa was many times more terrifying than ordinary protozoa. The regeneration ability of protozoa was also divided into strong and weak levels. Individuals that could be killed by ordinary pyrolite weapons were defined as regeneration level 1. Most of the protozoa and initiator belonged to this level. Regeneration level 2 meant that they could resist ordinary pyrolite weapons. They needed to be beheaded or burned with fuel to kill them. Regeneration level 3 meant that even if the arm was cut off, it could still be regenerated, or the severed limb could automatically return to the original body, and the cells would respond to each other. Regeneration level 4 allowed one to regenerate even if they lost most of their internal organs. In order to kill such an opponent, one would need to destroy them to the point where not even their limbs were left. Otherwise, this would be another type of undying body. As for whether the regeneration level 5 was real or not, most people probably didn't know. Because at this level, even if the opponent was thrown into extremely low temperature, vacuum, or even magma of thousands of degrees Celsius, as long as the opponent adapted to the environment, it would be able to regenerate, and it would be a molecular-level regeneration. With the current scientific level of this world, there was no physical means to kill an opponent of this level. The Scorpio constellation did not have the regeneration ability of a rank 4 or 5, but it still had the means to kill. However, it was impossible for it to only possess a level 1 regeneration ability. Otherwise, it wouldn't have made the insiders in the Tokyo area so desperate. Therefore, the Scorpio constellation had to be at least a level 2 regeneration constellation, and was able to resist the usual Earth weapons. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to survive until now. Standing beside Rintaro, Yenju's eyes flickered with uneasiness, but she still stared at the huge shadow on the surface of the sea. "Rintaro, what should we do now?" Rintaro didn't answer. It wasn't that he didn't want to answer, but that he didn't know how to answer. However, just because Rintaro didn't answer, it didn't mean that the others wouldn't answer. Isn't that obvious? A hand slowly pressed down on Rintaro's shoulder. Of course we have to deal with it. Rintaro and Yenju were shocked at first, but when they recognized the owner of the voice, they showed different degrees of surprise. "President." Yenju threw herself into Noah's arms. "Noah." Ryutaro seemed to have found his pillar of support. He breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly called out to Noah. "You said we have to deal with it. How do we deal with it?" Noah, who had appeared out of nowhere, hugged Yenju, who was running toward him with tears in her eyes. He raised his head and looked at Rintaro with a smile. "Then, Rintaro, do you want to save the world together?" "Save the world." Rintaro tightly clenched his hand. His hand was trembling. But Ryutaru put on a fearless smile. "If you have such thoughts, it's not like I can't accompany you for a while." Hearing this, Noah patted Rentaro's shoulder, and his eyes seemed to cross time and space, and he looked at the figure of Scorpio. Virum. The propeller of the military helicopter was frantically moving, supporting the huge body of the helicopter below. Noah stood at the top of the helicopter, in front of the rotating propeller. Braving the howling wind and air pressure, he stared straight ahead, looking at the Scorpio constellation that he could clearly see in its entirety. Rentaro's voice came from the pilot's seat of the helicopter. "Is this enough?" "It's done." Noah closed his eyes and let the bangs in front of his forehead sway wildly with the strong wind blowing against him. "Next, it's my job. President." Yenju's excited voice came from the helicopter. "Do your best. President, you can definitely defeat Scorpio." Chapter 105. The sun shone from the horizon, as if bringing new hope to people, illuminating every corner of the entire Tokyo area. On the balcony of the top floor of the sacred residence, Noah looked down at the scene below where at least 100 high-ranking officials and celebrities gathered and a large group of reporters had been noisily taking photos. His eyes were not affected by the crazily flashing camera flashes, and his dark eyes were still as deep as before. After maintaining this scene for an unknown amount of time, a quiet voice sounded from behind Noah. The celebration ceremony this time is specially held for the hero who defeated the Stage V protozoa and saved the Tokyo area. However, the main character of the ceremony directly skipped the ceremony and hid in this kind of place. Not only is this disrespectful, it will also disappoint many people who hope to see the hero. Saying such a sentence, a beautiful girl wearing a white wedding dress came to Noah's side, and together with him, they looked down at the lively scene below. "President Noah, you're probably the only one in the world who would skip the celebratory ceremony hosted by the government and stand up everyone in the Tokyo area." Noah didn't turn his head, as if he had already guessed who came. His eyes were still looking at the lively scene below, and only after a while did he speak. "I said, I don't have a strong sense of justice to save the entire Tokyo area. Naturally, I can't be the hero of the Tokyo area, participate in the celebration ceremony, and be worshipped." After saying that, Noah glanced at Xingtianzi next to him. Besides, there shouldn't be anyone who really worships me. After all, I am the shelter of the cursed child. Do you really not have any reason to defeat the Stage V protoget animals because of the Tokyo area? Xing Tianzi's voice slightly changed, as if it was regretful, as if it was sad. Is the Tokyo area really not worth your protection? Not worth it. Noah didn't care that the person next to him was the supreme ruler of the Tokyo area, and said this sentence without hesitation and without changing his expression. At least, until now, I haven't found a reason to protect it. On the contrary, as Li Jingyin said, there are a lot of reasons to destroy it. But didn't you take the initiative to stand out when a Stage V appeared? Xing Tianzi turned around and finally cast his gaze on Noah. His tone couldn't help but carry some emotions. It was as if he wanted to prove that Noah's words weren't true. I heard it for real in the headquarters. I heard you say that you wanted to save the world. Saving the world is not the same as saving all of humanity. Noah also turned around and looked at Elysium's beautiful face. Or is the Holy Son of Heaven the same as the humans of 10 years ago? Does he think that humans are the overlords of the world? That humans are equal to this world, and that saving this world is equivalent to saving all of humanity? Sage Son of Heaven clenched his hands in front of his chest. He seemed to realize that he was a little agitated, so he forced himself to calm down and put on a serious expression. However, President Noah's power is something that no one knows about. The power of the original body can save all of humanity. Don't flatter me. Noah didn't waver at all and laughed at himself. I said, I'm not that great. But... Sage Son of Heaven seemed to want to say something, but after seeing Noah's calm expression from beginning to end, he reluctantly stopped talking. That day, Sage Son of Heaven and the other high-ranking officials clearly saw from the big screen in the headquarters. They saw the scene where Noah defeated one of the 11 strongest protozoa. That indeed brought an unimaginable shock to all the witnesses. After all, up until now, the existence that could defeat a Stage V protozoa, other than the two strongest initiators in the world who were ranked first and second in the IP rankings, no one else could do it. One could imagine how shocking Noah's actions were. Afterwards, Noah said that the beam of light that defeated Scorpio was created by a rare bullet that he accidentally obtained, and he himself didn't know the result would be like this. This extremely vague statement was used to evade the reason why Scorpio was killed and the phenomenon that all the witnesses saw that day. In this way, Noah became the lucky hero who accidentally obtained an amazing weapon to defeat Scorpio and saved the entire Tokyo area. As for what the bullet that could defeat Scorpio was, it became something that everyone wanted to know. Many people began to investigate this matter in an attempt to obtain some clues. Sage Son of Heaven was one of them. However, intuition told Sage Son of Heaven that this matter was definitely not as simple as Noah said. There must be some other inside story. Therefore, Sage Son of Heaven hoped to get some information from Noah. But seeing Noah's unmoved expression, Sage Son of Heaven knew. Noah was prepared to play dumb until the end. This made Sage Son of Heaven even more convinced that the bullet that could kill Scorpio and the person who controlled the bullet, Noah, must be hiding something. Just as Sage Son of Heaven was thinking about this, Noah, who was still looking at the lively scene below, suddenly opened his mouth. I heard that the people who signed the petition supporting Li Jingyin to steal 7 Stars inheritance were all arrested, right? Yes. Yes. Sage Son of Heaven didn't think that Noah would suddenly bring up this topic, and slightly couldn't react in time. Everyone has been apprehended. Then. Noah looked at Sage Son of Heaven as if he could see through Sage Son of Heaven's thoughts. Has the mastermind been caught? Sage Son of Heaven's heart suddenly panicked, and he couldn't help but turn his head, avoiding Noah's gaze. This is our job, President Noah doesn't need to worry about it. Is that so? Noah looked straight at Sage Son of Heaven and smiled for no reason. Do you know? The people who signed the petition are either from a certain faction, or they used to belong to that faction. Sage Son of Heaven's face changed. It seems that I guessed right. Noah smiled, but there was no smile in his eyes. The mastermind this time is Chrysanthemum Tentong's Prime Minister. In fact, if one thought about it carefully, a lot of things could be understood. Not long ago, Sage Son of Heaven stood his ground and prepared to add a new bill in the Tokyo area. Primitive Animals New Law. It was a bill that could give the most basic human rights to the cursed child. And this bill was something that Chrysanthemum Tentong's Prime Minister, who hated the cursed child, absolutely did not want to see. In order to make this bill invalid, Chrysanthemum Tentong's Prime Minister secretly entrusted Li Qingyin, and let Li Qingyin take away the legacy of the 7 stars and carry out the Stage V primitive animal summoning. Noah said indifferently. Because once the news that Li Qingyin were one of the terrorists who tried to destroy the Tokyo area spread to the media, public opinion would no longer support them, and this bill would become invalid. Am I right? Sage Son of Heaven lowered his head, speechless. Why? Noah's tone was still calm, without any emotion. You also suspect that Chrysanthemum Tentong's Prime Minister is the mastermind, right? Why don't you arrest him and bring him to justice? Sage Son of Heaven was silent, until after a long time, he spat out words full of bitterness. Because, without him, I can't support the entire Tokyo area by myself. In one sentence, all the bitterness in Sage Son of Heaven's heart was expressed. Looking at the sorrowful Sage Son of Heaven beside him, Noah thought of the Sage Son of Heaven who always maintained a holy and calm expression in front of the media, and he also became silent. It turned out that the so-called Sage Son of Heaven was not a perfect saint. Sage Son of Heaven was also a girl. A girl who just turned 16, a year and a half younger than Noah. Am I too harsh on this girl? Chapter 106. Tokyo, District 39, Fairy Tale. On the way back to his residence, Noah casually greeted the people who lived in Fairy Tale while walking back to his residence, but his mind had already drifted away. After a year of operation, Fairy Tale was no longer limited to providing schools, residences, hospitals, and training facilities for the cursed child. Some of the promoter and initiator who joined the Fairy's Tale as police officers also lived here. Those who acted as teachers in schools also lived in Fairy Tale. The staff of the hospital and training facilities also lived here, and they were not people who discriminated against the cursed child. Some of them also did some part-time business here. Therefore, Fairy Tale could be considered a small city that could be self-sufficient, even if the scale could not be considered a city at all, only the size of a small town. Walking on the road, Noah suddenly saw the figure of Elysium on the street TV, which made him stop. It seemed to be a video of a news program. On the TV, Elysium's expression was very serious, and she firmly said that in respect of the basic human rights of the cursed child, she would propose a bill again. That was the new law on primitive animals that was now a hot topic in the entire Tokyo area. It was also the root cause of Stage V of the zodiac. This time, Scorpio came to the Tokyo area. To be honest, Noah actually had a good impression of Elysium. Noah, who was very concerned about the cursed child, knew that in fact, the cursed child all over the world did not have a good life. Not to mention foreign countries, even the cursed child, in the 5 regions of their own country was like a rat crossing the street, hated by everyone. Among the 5 regions, the cursed child in the Tokyo area had the best experience. This was because the Emperor of Tokyo was not a person who discriminated against the cursed children. He even proposed a basic bill of rights for the cursed children. Just like the rumors said, he was as kind as a symbol of peace. Therefore, the children in Tokyo were the ones who lived the best lives of the cursed children. But even so, the cursed child in Tokyo did not have a good life. Noah had heard that in the past, the cursed children would usually be secretly sent to the river as soon as they were born, and their mothers would throw them into the water to drown them before they could even open their eyes. It was just that cruel. Therefore, Noah sincerely hoped that the Holy Son's new law on primitive animals would pass. But now, it seemed that it would not be easy to achieve. Of course, if the new law on primitive animals was not passed, the fairy's tale would always be the home of the cursed child. Therefore, to Noah, it would be best if the new law on primitive animals could be passed. If not, he would only feel that it was a pity and would not be affected. In the past, Noah thought so. Now, looking at the incomparably holy and serious Holy Son on TV, who could respond to the media's sharp questions without changing her expression, Noah almost couldn't equate her with the Holy Son who just showed a cowardly side in the holy house. It's not easy for her. After that, Noah slowly clenched his hand, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Sure enough, if I don't defeat you, the children can't be happy. With that said, Noah's thoughts began to become active. While thinking about all kinds of things, he walked in the direction of his residence. Pushing the door open, Noah walked directly into his residence. People in this country seem to have the habit of shouting, "I'm back," when they entered their own house. But Noah was not from this country, and he was not even from this world. Naturally, he did not have such a habit. Not to mention, Noah lived alone. Even if he had the same habit, he did not know who to tell. However, in the next moment, Noah heard a voice that surprised him. "Welcome back." Noah was stunned. He looked in front and then rolled his eyes. "Mugging, Rentaro, Yenju, why is it you guys again? You don't want to see me." Yenju puffed up her cheeks and shouted loudly. "I came to see you right after school. Since you're so free, how about you go home and revise your homework when you're free?" Noah sighed. His eyes were half closed as he looked at Mugging and Rentaro. "What about you guys? Why are you guys here?" "Well..." Rentaro scratched his head. "We just came to find Yenju. When we saw Yenju come over, we followed her. It's not just us." Mugging smiled and pulled someone out from behind him. "When I was outside your house, I saw this child staring at the door, so I brought her in." Noah was stunned and surprised. Standing in front of Mugging and having his hand on her shoulder, as if he was introducing her, was a little girl who was emitting a cold aura. She did not have much expression on her face and appeared to be unusually calm. "You are?" Noah asked uncertainly when he found the other party's image in his memory. "You're the initiator called Xiaoshi. My name is Qinsho Xiaoshi." The girl called Xiaoshi politely bowed to Noah. Her eyes and face were filled with a sense of intelligence that ordinary children would never have. "We've met once before in the Ministry of Defense." The little girl with inexplicable intellectual nature in front of him was the initiator, the partner of the local ruffian named Admiral who was previously taught a lesson by Noah in the Ministry of Defense. "I want to thank you." Xiaoshi's calm eyes were fixed on Noah. "Thank you for taking me in." Hearing this, Noah more or less understood why Xiaoshi was here. Not long ago, many policemen who went to unexplored areas to chase after Li Qingyin were killed by Li Qingyin. Among them, all of the promoters were mercilessly killed by Li Qingyin, but the initiators were used as hostages by Li Qingyin in an attempt to restrain Noah. Supervisor Jiang and Xiaoshi were a pair of partners in the police team. In other words, the arrogant Supervisor Jiang, who wanted to cause trouble for Noah, had already been killed by Li Qingyin. Xiaoshi and the rest of the initiators had become hostages, but they had managed to survive. After that, Noah let these children choose whether to return to the International Initiator Monitoring Organization (ISO), and let the International Initiator Monitoring Organization (ISO) help them find a new promoter or directly join Fairy Tale. In the end, a total of 30 initiators all chose to join Fairy Tale. It seemed that Xiaoshi also chose to join Fairy Tale, which was why she appeared in front of Noah. That's just a small matter, you don't have to take it to heart. Noah stepped forward, squatted down, and looked at the calm little girl in front of him. He reached out his hand and patted her head. How is it? Are you used to living here? Hearing Noah's extremely gentle words and seeing Noah's smiling face, Xiaoshi froze on the spot and did not react. There was only one thought in her mind. He's as gentle as the rumors say. Chapter 107. Seeing that not only did Xiaoshi not reply, but he was also staring at him in a daze, Noah, who had encountered the same situation with the other children more than once, stroked Xiaoshi's head even more gently. His expression also became gentler. What's wrong? No, nothing. Xiaoshi finally reacted. She looked a little unnatural, but she didn't break free from Noah's hand. It's just that I've never been treated like this before, then you'll have to get used to it quickly. Noah gently hugged Xiaoshi's small body and whispered in her ear. Because, here, you'll be able to enjoy all the gentleness that you've lost before. You can't always be so surprised. Xiaoshi was slightly absent-minded. She felt the warmth of Noah's embrace, and she almost became sentimental. Thus, Xiaoshi began to murmur. Then, this really is an incredible place. This time, there was finally some emotion in Xiaoshi's tone, causing Mugging, Rentaro, and Yanzhu to heave a sigh of relief to varying degrees. Previously, Xiaoshi's tone had always been calm, as if she had abandoned all her emotions. Or rather, it could be said that she was emotionless. This kind of calmness that didn't match Xiaoshi's age made it difficult for the others to deal with. As if she could see the relief in Mugging, Ryutaru, and Yanzhu's hearts, Xiaoshi once again returned to her initial calmness. I'm a dolphin-type initiator. My intelligence and memory are both higher than the average promoter and initiator. If I remember correctly, the last time I tested my IQ, it should be 210. 210. Mugging and Yanzhu both widened their eyes. Ryutaru was even more shocked. Then, he spoke with a face full of disappointment. Then isn't that more than twice my IQ? Children's IQ tests are usually more relaxed. Xiaoshi lightly shook her head. As long as you show a certain level of intelligence, the test results will improve quite a bit. It's a bit different from the standards of adults. But that's still very powerful. Noah let go of Xiaoshi and gently pushed her in front of him, sizing her up. So, are you the initiator of the brain faction? The dolphin genes in my body have indeed given me quite a bit of intelligence, and my combat ability is at most at the level of an initiator. Xiaoshi lowered his eyes. It was also because of this that when I fought against Li Qingyin, Mr. Jiang was directly killed. I didn't even last 10 moves before I was captured alive. Losing to a promoter was really embarrassing. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Li Qingyin wasn't a normal promoter to begin with. As a robot soldier created under the new human creation plan, his combat ability is definitely comparable to an excellent initiator. You don't have to worry about this. Noah slowly rubbed Xiaoshi's head. Besides, being a brain faction also has its benefits. There aren't many brain faction members in Fairy Tale. If Xiaoshi can stay, she'll definitely be of great help. I won't leave. When she said this, Xiaoshi's voice showed a hint of emotion for the second time, a hint of anxiousness. I want to stay here. Then stay here. Noah said this without hesitation. Coupled with the warmth of the large hand on her head, Xiaoshi's heart was calm. Then thou is this concubine's junior. Yanzhu patted Xiaoshi's back as if she was familiar with him and giggled. Don't worry, I'll take care of thee. Xiaoshi suddenly looked at Yanzhu in disbelief. As far as I know, Miss Yen Zhu is Rintaro-san's partner, and Rintaro-san doesn't seem to have joined Fairy's Tail. Miss Yen Zhu shouldn't be a member of Fairy's Tail, right? This has nothing to do with Mr. Rintaro. Yen Zhu didn't hesitate to say these words, which struck Ryutaru's heart repeatedly and dealt him a heavy blow. Although this concubine is Rintaro's partner, this concubine is still a member of Fairy Tail. This concubine also studied in Fairy Tail, and I have my own home. Oh, by the way, why don't I bring you to this concubine's home to take a look? I have no objections. While Yen Zhu and Xiaoshi were in a heated discussion, Mugging and Rintaro quietly pulled Noah to the side. What's wrong? Noah crossed his arms and looked at the two people standing in front of him. It seems like you have something you want to talk to me about. Don't tell me you want me to transfer some work to you. We don't need it now, and maybe we won't need it in the future. Muging's eyes began to shine with expectation. Although you weren't of much use when Li Qingyin was causing trouble, Riki-kun sent you to Scorpio with a helicopter. Assisting you in defeating Scorpio is considered a contribution, and Riki-kun's IP ranking has risen to 9,900. Soon, you'll have work to do. Hearing this, Noah and Rentaro's mouth twitched. It's not easy for a company with only one IP ranking 9,900 to become famous, right? Can they really get a job like this? Looking at Muging's excited and expectant face, Noah didn't want to interrupt her delusions. He could only look at Rintaro. Tell me, why are you looking for me? Actually. Rintaro stole a glance at Mugging. It's not us looking for you. It's Muri who wants to meet you. Hearing this name, the excitement and expectation in Muging's eyes disappeared and was replaced with disdain and gloominess. Sima Muri. Noah asked doubtfully. Why is she looking for me? I don't know. Rintaro hesitated for a moment and said. But, if I didn't guess wrong, Muri, or Sima Heavy Industries, is interested in the bullet you used to kill Scorpio? Noah was relieved. In other words, Sima Muri wants to get information about the bullet from me. It's not just information, right? Mugging showed a rare look of mockery. With that snake woman's personality, she should want to get the origin of the bullet, the manufacturing method, the manufacturing materials, and even the way to get it from you. If we can mass-produce the bullet that can kill Stage V of the Zodiac, then Sima Heavy Industries will become the world's #1 weapons company. Noah wasn't surprised at all. Noah had long known that once he disguised his crush as the so-called bullet in order to conceal the existence of magic, this kind of after effect would only happen sooner or later. Not to mention Sima Heavy Industries, once the news of Noah possessing a bullet that could kill a Stage V protozoan spread out, then in every corner of the world, those extremely ambitious people would definitely flock to Noah one after another to find him. Noah was already mentally prepared for this. After all, Noah wasn't afraid of being targeted. The reason why he decorated his crush as the bullet was because he didn't want to bring any negative influence to this world without the existence of magic. Noah. At this time, Mugging put his face in front of Noah. While constantly approaching Noah, he shouted with a face full of excitement. Don't be fooled by that snake woman. Don't let her take away your bullets either. Otherwise, she'll definitely squeeze every last bit of value out of you before kicking you away. Facing such an excited Mugging, Noah could only stiffly retreat. In his heart, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What the hell is going on? Chapter 108. Xiao Nuoya, with a sweet voice and smile, Muji entered Noah's door and immediately threw herself at Noah. Noah, who opened the door, was so shocked that he couldn't react in time, and was directly held by Muji. The soft touch passed into Noah's nerves, making Noah's heart suddenly jump, and he almost didn't escape. Fortunately, in the past, Li Sana often threw herself at Noah for no reason, just like Muji, holding one of Noah's hands, so that Noah, who was accustomed to this, wouldn't be embarrassed. Suppressing his heart's wavering, he awkwardly struggled to free his arm. Miss Sima, what are you doing? Just call me Muji. Muji's smile was still sweet, tightly holding Noah's arm, not letting him break free. Although I already knew that little Noah is not an ordinary person, but I didn't expect that he could easily defeat the Zodiac Stage V, really worthy of being the man I fancied. The man you fancied. Noah, who was still trying to break free from Muji, said in a daze. Isn't the man you fancied Rentaro? Well, when I first saw little Noah, I also felt that he would become a big shot, but I also felt this feeling from little Noah, and it's very strong. Muji's eyes shined. So, little Noah, do you want to come to my side? You can name any conditions you want. What do you mean by go to your side? Undoubtedly, his physical ability was above Muji's, but Noah was worried that he would touch something he shouldn't touch, so he didn't use too much strength. As a result, there was no way to break free, and he could only stiffen his body and keep a straight face. If you want to win me over, please use a better way, okay? You should give up, Noah. Mugging, who had been watching from the side, couldn't help but sneer. Being shameless is this snake woman's special skill, and flirting is her proudest skill. Without these, she wouldn't dare to come see you. These words caused Rentaro, Yenju, and Xiaoshi's jaws to drop slightly. But Muji, who was still clinging on to Noah's arm, seemed to have just noticed Mugging, and said in surprise. What? So you, the down-and-out young miss who only has the female parts that are particularly prominent, is also here? This time, even Noah was stunned. How? Aren't these two people a little too vicious? It seems. Xiaoshi looked at Mugging and Muji and said expressionlessly. These two don't seem to have a good relationship. Hey, Rentaro. Yenju also lowered her voice and asked. What's the matter with these two? How should I put it? Rentaro clutched his head as if he had a headache. The Sima family and the Tendo family have a lot of karma, so Miss Mugging and Muji have known each other for a long time. But whether it's because of the grudges between the two families or because of the ill-fated relationship, these two are true enemies. Once they meet, it will definitely lead to the most terrible outcome. Noah, who heard Rentaro's words clearly, couldn't help but have a headache. He quickly said, anyway, don't stand here, go in and sit. Oh. Who knew? Muji actually made a fuss about nothing, and then looked in Muging's direction with a smile. Did you hear that, Mugging? Little Noah personally invited me in. Unlike those truly shameless women, you must have come uninvited and barged into little Noah's house without permission, right? As soon as this sentence was said, everyone present heard a snap sound coming from Muging's body, as if something had broken. Muging's smile had become a bit forced. With my relationship with Noah, this is just a sign of a good relationship. I don't know where this snake woman came from, but what does she know? Good relationship. When can my relationship with you be called good? When Noah's face was blank, Muji smiled calmly. I say, Mugging, it's not the first day I know you. Don't tell me I don't understand that you've always treated little Noah as a free meal ticket and wallet. Who said that? Muging's face flushed red. Rather than saying that she was angry, it was better to say that her thoughts were poked. Even her voice had completely changed. My relationship with Noah is the best in the world. Muging's words made Noah's eyes widen. To be honest, Noah's relationship with Mugging was really not good. At most, they stayed at the level of friends. When Mugging was in financial difficulties, he would give her a little help. His relationship with Mugging was the best in the world. This sentence, not to mention Noah and Muji, even Mugging herself might not believe it. Therefore, Muging's face turned even redder when he heard this. Of course, it wasn't that everyone didn't believe it. Miss Mugging. Rintaro, who grew up with mugging, looked like he had suffered a big blow and almost burned to ashes. President. Yen Zhu stomped her feet. Could it be that President was also deceived by Muging's big breasts like Rintaro? Breasts. Breasts? Mugging couldn't help but raise her hands to protect her breasts, shouting with a red face. This has nothing to do with breasts at all. Noah and Xiaoshi, on the other hand, reflexively shot their gazes to the chest that was protected by Muging's arm. Then, they saw that not only was Muging's pair not covered up, but they were even more exposed, wrapped in a black sailor suit. They are indeed very big. Xiaoshi said this with an extremely objective attitude. From a man's point of view, they are indeed very attractive. It's not impossible for President to fall for Miss Muging's breasts. Don't believe me. Doubt me. Noah realized that if he didn't say anything, he might really be unable to escape the suspicion of falling for Muging's breasts for the rest of his life. Mugging and I are just friends, don't make trouble, okay? Oh. Oh. Muji exclaimed again and again, raising her eyebrows at Mugging with a victorious expression. Just friends, the Mugging who has the best relationship with little Noah in the world. Muging's whole body trembled, her tightly clenched fists were already making creaking sounds. In this regard, Muji didn't seem to notice anything. She snuggled up to Noah like a little bird and said coquettishly, "Sa, little Noah, let's not care about mugging, let's go improve our relationship together." After that, Muji pulled Noah, not knowing if it was intentional or not, towards the direction of Noah's room. Hey! Noah's brain really couldn't keep up, and he hurriedly called out. Wait for me, wait for me. Unfortunately, before Noah could stop Muji, Mugging finally couldn't bear it anymore and pounced forward. She directly hugged Noah's other arm, sticking a pair of huge breasts on Noah's hand, and angrily glared at Muji. You snake woman, don't even think about deceiving Noah. Even if you want to improve your relationship, you should improve it with me. You are just a friend. Friend. Muji forcefully pulled Noah's hand while constantly emphasizing. You friend, hurry up and let go of me. If I'm a friend, then you are a stranger who I've only met twice. Mugging didn't back down and pulled Noah's other hand, playing tug-of-war with Muji. A stranger who only met twice and sticks to me, you should let go of me. You 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 let go of me. Feeling all kinds of soft touches and fragrances coming from both sides of his body, Noah, whose hands were being pulled so hard that it hurt a little, wanted to cry but had no tears. He finally cried out for help. Rintaro. They are your childhood sweethearts and schoolmates, right? Hurry up and think of a way for me. Noah, who was shouting, didn't notice that Rintaro had already knelt on the ground in a daze, and the background was dim. Best relationship, best relationship, best relationship, best relationship. Chapter 109. An extremely oppressive silence pervaded the not-so-spacious hall. Across the table, Mugging, who was sitting on the sofa, crossed his arms unhappily and turned his face to the other side, as if he didn't want to see anything dirty. Most of the depression in the hall came from Mugging. Compared to Mugging, Muri, who was sitting opposite Mugging, had a smile on her face. She seemed to be in a very good mood, drinking tea elegantly while laughing. This was also the reason why Mugging was unhappy and indirectly caused the atmosphere to be oppressive. Ryutaro was sitting diagonally opposite Mugging and Muri, as if he had inexplicably. He recovered from the blow and realized that the second wave of the war could start at any time, so he was very nervous. So, sitting diagonally opposite Ryutaro, Noah, who was sitting diagonally opposite Mugging and Muri, kept sighing and lamenting his bad luck in his heart. Why did such a thing happen to him? Is this the Shura field mentioned in the book? But just like what was said before, mugging was just an ordinary friend that he had a little contact with. Although Muri was not a stranger, just like what mugging said, including this time, the two had only met twice. How could the Shura field situation happen in such a situation? So, Noah thought. Just like what Ryuteru said. Mugging and Muri were complete enemies, and if they met together, it would cause a very serious matter. In the end, Noah was just a bystander who was implicated because he happened to encounter this terrible thing. Regarding this point, Xiaoshi, who had an IQ of more than 210, seemed to have guessed it, so he didn't continue to stay and watch the show, and ran away with Yanju. If possible, Noah also wanted to learn from Xiaoshi and Yanju, and directly run away without a trace. But before that, the things that should be said still need to be said clearly. Muri-san. At that moment, Noah turned his head and looked at Muri, taking the lead to break the silence. Although I can roughly guess the reason why you're here, I still want to hear what you're here for. When it came to the main topic, both Mugging and Rintaro straightened their backs and stopped bickering. Only Emoji still maintained that smiling posture. She held a fan that seemed to be made of iron and tapped it on her cheek. Ma, little Noah, don't be so serious. I didn't come here to talk about such a serious topic. Do you want to talk about something serious? Noah frowned slightly. Then what do you want to talk about? Little Noah, you are a smart person. Don't you know that besides business, the topic of discussion in SEMA Heavy Industries can't be anything else? Emoji said calmly. Fairy Tale is not only a shelter for the cursed child, but it is also a place to train the initiator and part-time police. Both the initiator and the promoter need weapons, right? Then you guessed wrong. Noah's furrowed brows relaxed and he shrugged his shoulders. Although Fairy Tale does have an organization to train initiators, if it's just training, there's no need to use specially made weapons. Normal practice weapons are enough. As for the police in Fairy Tale, they all have their own weapons because strictly speaking, we're not a police company. Just like the Fairy Tale Magic Guide Guild in Noah's original world, even if the members of the guild were partners in the same organization, the guild would not provide weapons to the members. After all, the guild was different from the companies in this world. The members, employees, would be bound by a contract or salary. If they wanted to work, they only needed to tear off the contract. It was very free. Naturally, if they were free, they wouldn't provide them with weapons or whatnot. Therefore, Emoji's statement may be applicable to ordinary police companies, but it doesn't apply to Fairy Tale. Having good weapons is better than not having any, right? Muri's expression did not change. She covered her mouth and smiled, but her eyes were indescribably serious. If a Fairy Tale needs any weapons, we can provide all of them to you for free, including those made by humans. For free. Noah, Mugging, and Rentaro's hearts moved at the same time. For free. This sounded like a good deal, but how could there be such a good thing in the world? Don't look at how Noah and Rentaro's guns and ammunition were provided for free by Muri. They thought that SEMA Heavy Industries was so rich that they didn't care about wealth. If they really did that, SEMA Heavy Industries would have gone bankrupt long ago. The reason why Muri could generously provide free equipment to Noah and Rentaro was because Noah and Rentaro were alone. Even if it was provided for free, it wouldn't cost much. Therefore, if you were to provide free equipment to the entire Fairy Tale, the nature of the situation would be completely different. No one present was a real fool. Naturally, it was impossible for them not to understand this point. Their gaze towards Muri also became thought-provoking. Paying so much, what does SEMA Heavy Industries want in return? Noah bluntly asked. Miss Muri, you are also a smart person. I don't believe that you don't know that there are some things that I can't compromise on, right? Noah was, of course, referring to the matter of the bullets. That was Noah's way of saying that to cover up his shattering. If Muri came for it, then Noah could only disappoint her. Well, little Noah, it's not that I don't understand what you want to say, but you should know that a weapon that can defeat a stage V gastronomic animal will attract a lot of attention, right? Muri looked straight at Noah. She didn't hide her curiosity and directly asked. I won't ask you where it came from, how it was made, what it was made of, and what it was produced. I just want to know, little Noah, do you still have that kind of bullet? This time, even Mugging and Rentaro couldn't hide their curiosity. Like Muri, they looked straight at Noah. Facing everyone's gaze, Noah closed his eyes. After pondering for a while, he gave such an answer. Yes. Mugging and Rentaro's eyes lit up. Muri also quickly said. How many? How many? Noah opened his eyes and spread out his hands. It's definitely enough to kill all the stage Vs. Kill all the stage Vs. Mugging and Rentaro were shocked. Kill all the stage Vs. Muri's lips trembled. Then she excitedly shouted. Little Noah. Marry me. PFFF. Noah and Rentaro directly spat. You snake woman, you really did come here with bad intentions. Mugging stood up and pounced towards Moj with bared fangs and brandished claws. Do you think I'll let you succeed? Muri was shocked. She was pushed down on the sofa by Mugging. The two of them twisted together. Finally chose to make a move. Mugging. Today, I must cut you. You're just a poor girl who ran away from home and can't even eat her fill. Today, I will defeat you in the hands of Sima Lu. Before that, let me use Tendo Ryu to drain your blood. Although they said so, the two daughters of the famous Tiantong school and Sima Lu did not use their outstanding martial arts skills at all. They just fell on the sofa and wrestled, pulling each other's hair. Noya and Rintaro looked at each other and finally let out a long sigh. Chapter 110. The slightly cold air filled the fairy's tale. In the vast training ground, Noah stood in the center with his eyes closed, holding the sheathed knight's sword in his hand, quietly waiting in place. Who? A cold wind that made one's skin prickle blue from the surroundings. It swept across Noah's body and caused the hem of his coat to flutter in the wind. Kacha, at a certain moment, such a voice echoed around the training ground. Kacha Kacha. As if it had caused a chain reaction, the same sound not only became louder and louder from the surroundings, but it also became more frequent. Taking a closer look, it was the sound of machine guns suddenly popping up from the ground around the training ground, setting up and aiming in front. At least 30 machine guns were set up on the ground, surrounding the entire training ground. All of them were aimed at the center of the training ground, where Noah was. Da-da-da-da. At the next moment, the continuous sounds of machine gun fire turned into a cacophony of noise from all directions. Pa! In the midst of this chaotic sound, there was a very subtle sound that suddenly sounded. That was the sound of Noah's hand on the hilt of the knight's sword in his hand. Clang! Immediately after, dazzling sword gleams accompanied by a sword hum flashed around Noah, who was surrounded by machine gun bullets from all over his body. Dang 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 dang. Then, the dazzling sword lights collided with the bullets that were coming at them with menacing force. Ding 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 ding. The sound of bullets frequently falling to the ground also sounded. Moreover, those bullets that fell to the ground were all split in half, with extremely smooth cut marks on the fracture. Just like this, gunshots, sword sounds, crisp collision sounds, and the sound of bullets falling all mixed together, constantly reverberating back and forth in the training ground. Until the machine guns ran out of bullets, all kinds of sounds finally stopped. Whoo! Another gust of wind blew by, carrying away the smell of gunpowder and smoke that pervaded the training ground. Whoo! In the middle of the scattered bullets that were completely cut in half, Noah slowly exhaled. The knight's sword in his hand had already returned to the scabbard. It was only then that Noah opened his eyes and looked around. Looking at the ground that was completely cut in half and scattered with bullets, he nodded. 1 hour of sword training, complete. Fairy Tale was officially on the right track. The situations that required Noah to personally appear were a lot less, leaving Noah with a lot of free time. Without the slightest neglect, Noah naturally used his leisure time to train. The most important thing was the training of magic and sword skills. In terms of combat skills, Noah was already proficient enough, and even in the year that he lived in this world, he had absorbed the world's fighting, boxing, aikido, judo, kendo, martial arts, spear skills, and other aspects of the world. He had even absorbed the military combat skills, so there was no need for him to specially train. Because his physical ability was strengthened by the protozoan virus every month, there was no need for Noah to spend time specially training. Moreover, the current Noah's physical ability was definitely not worse than the cursed child, so using the method of training to strengthen his physical ability was not very effective. In fact, Noah found that the strengthening of the protozoan virus had gradually begun to lose its effect. This proved that Noah's physical ability had been strengthened to a shocking extent, and even the protozoan virus that could transform any creature into a monster could no longer be strengthened, reaching its limit. Therefore, now, Noah basically only maintained training in sword skills and magic. The training in other aspects had already reached its limit, and there was no need to continue. Compared to other aspects, magic was endless. As long as Noah continued to train his magic, not only could he become more familiar with the use of magic, but he could also improve the level of magic, and increase his strength in all aspects. As for sword skills, that was the skill that Noah was most familiar with. By training his sword skills, Noah could keep his body in the best condition, and not let his combat skills, physical ability, and other aspects deteriorate because of lack of training. In other words, now, Noah trained his magic to improve his strength, and trained his sword skills to maintain his best condition and not let himself deteriorate. This was the so-called go from complicated to simple. In the future, Noah only needed to train in magic and sword skills. In other aspects, it was enough to not deteriorate through training his sword skills. After all, without special circumstances, such as being strengthened by something like the protozoan virus, it would be difficult for Noah's other abilities to improve greatly. Then, next up is an hour of magic training. Talking to himself, Noah had just put the knight's sword into his usual cloth bag when his phone rang. Noah frowned. In this period of time, whenever Noah's phone rang, it was most likely not a good thing. Because of the bullet that killed that Scorpio, a lot of trouble began to follow one after another. For example, there were ambitious people from other regions who wanted to obtain the bullet from Noah, attempting to use it for their own hegemony. For example, there were people with ulterior motives who wanted to obtain the bullet from Noah, using it as a deterrent to strengthen their own position. There were also people who wanted to use the bullet for revenge, business, trade, and so on. Thus, one after another, they found trouble with Noah, making Noah very annoyed. I really hope they don't come for the bullet again. Even if they do, please let these people use assassination and kidnapping methods, letting me deal with them quickly. Saying such a sentence, Noah picked up the phone. Hello, I'm Noah. On the other side of the phone, a familiar sweet voice immediately sounded. Ah, little Noah, this time the phone call is a bit slow. Hearing this voice, Noah suddenly lost his strength and listlessly responded. What, so it's Moj, don't be so cold, little Noah. Moj let out a voice that sounded like she was about to cry. Do you hate me that much? I don't hate you, but I definitely don't welcome you. Noah rolled his eyes. Say it, what do you want from me? Little Noah, you're really boring. Moj's voice once again returned to its sweet state. Obviously, it was just an act. The thing you asked me to do last time, I've already done it. Noah's spirit was shaken, and his eyes glowed with vigor. Last time, in order to obtain some information about the bullet, Moj took the initiative to come to him. As a result, it turned into a big fight with Mugung, and it ended in a farce. However, afterwards, Noah asked Moj to help him do something. So, Noah's mouth slightly hooked up. You've collected it all. Only a part. Moj chuckled. But, it should be enough to make little Noah satisfied. Good. Noah nodded heavily. I owe you a favor. I don't want little Noah to be so clear with me. Moj laughed with deep meaning. Of course, if little Noah wants to return the favor, then take little Noah's own secret in exchange. Let's talk about it later. Noah perfunctorily replied such a sentence. Then, where is it? I gave it to Conori at school. Moj's voice became sly. So, little Noah, you go and see Conori. After that, Moj left a series of laughter and hung up the phone. Rentaro. That thing is not suitable for him to know, right? Noah had a headache. This Moj is definitely intentional. Chapter 111. Dee dash. The sound of car horns kept ringing, and it clearly drilled into Noah's ears. For Noah, this kind of sound has already become a common occurrence in the past year, and he could hear it every day. However, even so, Noah still felt uncomfortable with this kind of noise in this world. Compared to these sharp noises, the noisy sounds in the past fairy tale were like the sounds of nature. At least, it was so for Noah. While his mind was thinking about this, Noah raised his head, looked up, and looked at the building in front of him. It was a building called Happy Building. The signs hanging outside the building starting from the first floor were Sperjbiet, Matchery, Tiantong Civilian Police Company, and Light Wind Financial. In this year, Noah has already learned from a lot of books. With his extraordinary understanding and memory, he successfully mastered almost all the languages in this world. Therefore, Noah could easily distinguish that Sperjbiet was German, meaning forbidden area, and Matchery was French, meaning my lover. Tiantong Civilian Police Company was completely Chinese, and he believed that anyone could know what this place was from the sign. As for Light Wind Financial, at first glance, it seemed to be a financial company, but Noah, who was not unfamiliar with Mugino and Rintaro, knew that this was just a place for loan sharks. The first and second floors, if Noah remembered correctly, seemed to be a gay bar and a nightclub. It's really a place that makes people speechless. Leaving this sentence, Noah didn't know whether it was a comment or a complaint, and walked into the building. It was early in the morning, and it was only about 2 hours before dawn. The Sperjbiet, on the first floor, was a bar across the street. It seemed that it was not open yet, so the lights were not turned on, and there was no smell of people. The Matchery on the second floor was a type of shop, and it was much more obvious than the bar on the first floor. The shop was filled with pink wallpaper and glass balls that even romantic people would feel nauseous. It was also not open yet, so there was no smell of people. Therefore, Noah deliberately lowered his footsteps, walked up to the third floor, and gently pushed open the simple door with the sign Tiantong Civilian Police Company. Entering someone's territory without knocking was undoubtedly a very rude thing to do. This kind of common sense, in Noah's original world, was something that everyone knew. Noah was not as careless as Naz and Gray. When entering someone's house, he would definitely knock first. However, perhaps it was because Noah wanted to take revenge on Mugging and Rintaro for coming uninvited in the past, but this time, he did not knock on the door. He directly pushed the door open and entered. Therefore, what happened next was a rare experience in Noah's legendary life where he regretted his actions. The moment Noah opened the door, inside, a voice full of doubt and confusion let out a bewildered sound, and turned around to meet Noah's eyes. Then, the owner of the voice, whether it was his expression or his body, was completely frozen. At this time, Noah already suspected that what he saw was not real. He rubbed his eyes, and when he confirmed that everything in front of him was real, his expression gradually froze. What appeared in front of Noah was an ordinary yet extraordinary scene. Ordinary referred to the layout of the door. A few cheap desks and chairs, surrounded by a few bookshelves and screens, made up the small office in front of him. What was extraordinary was not the scene in the office, but the scene where the owner of the office was currently working. Even standing in Noah's position, he could clearly see it. The owner of the office in front of him was standing in front of a desk in the innermost part of the office. A black sailor suit was casually thrown on the desk. That was the clothes that the owner of the office usually wore. The owner of the office who threw the clothes on the desk stood there stiffly. The expression on his face was the kind of shock and disbelief that had happened because of something unexpected. Because of this, the owner of the office did not react for a while. Facing Noah's body, it was the kind of white that made people squint their eyes involuntarily. To put it simply, that body was completely naked. Therefore, Noah completely saw the delicate body that was sexy, full, white, charming, and infinitely tempting. His gaze also looked at the other party's curvaceous body. An indescribable silence fell in this small office. Noah and Mugging looked at each other from a distance. Their expressions were also stiff, and their eyes were also full of disbelief. This lasted for nearly a minute, and no one reacted from this state. It was not until a minute later that Mugging maintained the state of facing Noah. There was no cover on her body at all, and her beauty was completely displayed. Her face quickly turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye, and it was the kind of extreme red, and her mouth slowly opened. Noah, who witnessed all of this, finally reacted. At the same time, he also expected the screams that would resound throughout the building. With the grief and indignation of being surrounded at any time and being accused of a crime that would be difficult to wash away for the rest of his life, he stepped back step by step. Just when Mugging was about to scream and Noah was about to close the door to block this beautiful scene in front of him, such a voice came from the stairs next to him. Seriously, that Yen Zhu is clearly my partner, but she stays in fairy tale all day. She's not willing to come out even when I call her. She said something about waiting until she has a job. Can't she come here for a while if she doesn't have a job? The familiar voice caused Noah, who was retreating, to stumble and almost fall. Mugging's face was flush red, and the scream that was about to ring out was stopped in its tracks. If Rintaro saw this scene, not to mention what kind of misunderstanding it would cause, Mugging's seductive mature body would welcome the appreciation of the second man in her life. Under such circumstances, even Noah, who usually had the best control of his emotions, couldn't help but subconsciously began to look for an escape route. On the contrary, Mugging rushed in front of Noah. When Noah's eyes widened because of the beautiful body that was constantly enlarging in front of his eyes, she grabbed Noah's hand, dragged him into the office, and slammed the door. "I'm back." With this voice, Rintaro lazily pushed open the door of the Tentong Civil Guard Company office and walked in. Mugging-san. Rintaro glanced around and didn't find anyone, so he couldn't help but scratch his hair. "Not here. It's strange that you're not in the office at this time." After saying that, Rintaro complained as he walked towards the water dispenser. "Yen Zhu, who can't stay idle, isn't here. Mugging-san, who needs to work the most, isn't here, but I, who is usually the laziest guy, came to the office. What kind of strange day is today?" Rintaro said this sentence, filled his cup with water, took a sip, and sighed. "Should I suggest Mugging-san to prepare tea? After all, this is a company, right? They have to entertain guests, right?" Rintaro muttered to himself and walked in the direction of the water dispenser. Rintaro didn't notice at all. Outside the door, there were two extremely weak breathing. Chapter 112. Through the gap in the wardrobe, Noah saw Ryotaro sitting outside, lazily drinking water. Ryotaro was really not a hard-working person. Therefore, after hiding in the wardrobe, Noah kept praying that Ryotaro would quickly leave this place so that he could resolve this situation that could cause his heart to explode at any time. However, Noah had a hunch that it wouldn't be easy to get Ryotaro to leave this place when he saw the way he was sipping his tea the whole time. Noah could not help but curse his fate, and his body could not help but tense up. Perhaps it was because it was too hot or because the air in the wardrobe was too thin. The other person hiding in the wardrobe began to pant. Noah's heartbeat had completely entered an uncontrollable state. It was beating at an extremely high frequency, and he could not help but look down slightly. He did not know if it was fortunate or unfortunate. Although it was a wardrobe, it was obvious that Mugging did not intend to use it to organize clothes. As a result, it was empty inside. Otherwise, the two adults would not have been able to hide in it. However, with Mugging's financial situation, it was obviously impossible for him to spend a lot of money to buy a good wardrobe. Therefore, the wardrobe was not very spacious. Therefore, Noah, who was hiding in the wardrobe, was no longer separated from Mugging. Under the pressure of the limited space, Mugging's body was completely squeezed onto Noah's body, causing Noah to be extremely excited. As they were dragged in by Mugging in a hurry, the two of them did not even have time to adjust their postures before they were squeezed together. In addition to the limited space, not to mention leaving a small gap, they could feel each other's body temperature and touch even when they were not moving. This was also the reason why Noah's heartbeat was completely out of control. It was only now that Noah and Mugging realized the state of the two of them. Mugging's entire body was pressed against Noah's, and his hands were also raised high above his head, pressing against the top of the wardrobe. If it weren't for the fact that the two of them were completely pressed together, Noah only needed to move his gaze down slightly to see Mugging's entire body. But Noah's condition was not good. His left hand was on the other side of the wardrobe, but because of Mugging's presence, it was pressed down tightly, and it was pressed down by Mugging's buttocks. His right hand was originally blocking in front of him, but because of Mugging's pressure, it had now sunk into an indescribable softness. If he wasn't mistaken, it should be the feeling of Mugging's full breasts. In other words, not only was Mugging's entire body squeezed into Noah's arms, but Noah's hand was still holding on to Mugging's softness, and his other hand was pressed down by Mugging's buttocks. If the wardrobe was removed, it would look like Noah was touching Mugging all over. Realizing this, Noah not only tightened his body, but his mind was also in a mess. With a swoosh, sweat flowed down his face. Mugging's pretty face was flushed red. Compared to Noah, who was sweating, almost every inch of Mugging's delicate body was sweating. Realizing that she was being touched by Noah, her skin became a little red, and she spoke in a shy and angry voice. Hand. Reminded by Mugging, Noah also quivered and hurriedly tried to pull his hand away. As a result, in such a limited space, not only was Noah's hand unable to pull out smoothly, but it was also very obvious that he was sinking deeper into the softness. At the same time that unforgettable softness came from his hands, Mugging's soft moans also entered Noah's ears. Don't move. Without even a second of pause, Noah instantly stopped his twitching hand, and more sweat flowed down his forehead. Mugging's voice was completely like crying. Hand. Your hand. Noah wanted to cry but had no tears. Move. But not only would he not be able to pull out his hand, he would also take the opportunity to rub Mugging's full breasts and buttocks. Not moving. Then he had to keep it like this, holding Mugging's two extremely soft and full parts. This was not the right thing to do, but it was also not the right thing to do. No matter what, it was not a good situation. What should he do? At that moment, Noah could only speak in a hoarse voice, as if he was angry out of humiliation. Why did you pull me in? That's because my body suddenly moved on its own. I don't want to do this. Mugging twisted her body slightly as if in discomfort, so embarrassed that she was about to faint. In short, you have to think of a way to get your hand. Mugging did not understand at all. Her subconscious twisting of her body not only did not make the situation better, but also brought more stimulation to Noah. Noah could only raise his head, trying his best not to notice the soft touch from Mugging's chest and hands when she was twisting her body, and tried to use words to divert his attention. Can you please stop moving around? What can I do if I don't move? Am I supposed to let you take advantage of me? Aren't you also letting me take advantage of you by moving around like this? Then hurry up and think of a way. Aren't you a man? At this time, I'd rather not be a man. That way, I wouldn't be as miserable as I am now. Miserable? You said miserable. You actually said miserable. Is there something wrong? I should be the miserable one. Undoubtedly, you're enjoying it. Who wants to enjoy it so much? What do you mean by that? Undoubtedly, you're touching my body and you're saying something like that. I've really misjudged you. As Noah and Mugging's emotions became more and more agitated, their voices became louder and louder, inevitably causing some noises to come out of the closet. Rintaro, who was fiddling with his laptop in boredom, seemed to have noticed something and raised his puzzled face. What's that sound? Inside the closet, Noah and Mugging's hearts skipped a beat at the same time and they shut their mouths tightly. However, no matter what, Rintaro was still a police officer. There was no way he would think that he was hallucinating. Therefore, Rintaro stood up with a puzzled look on his face and looked around the room. Then, he frowned and looked in the direction of the closet. Noah and Mugging's heartbeats were so fast because they were so close to each other that they could feel it. In their hearts, they were desperately praying that they would not be discovered. Otherwise, with Noah and Mugging's current state, one was completely naked while the other was groping a naked girl while hiding in the wardrobe, others would definitely think that they were engaging in some kind of play to improve their relationship. Unfortunately, this time, it seemed that even God could not bear to watch. In the next second, Ryutaro frowned and walked towards the wardrobe, step by step. Woo-woo. Mugging let out a few whimpers as if she had chosen to give up. It was as if she did not want another man to see her important body parts. She squeezed her entire body into Noah's arms and closed her eyes. Noah also sensed Mugging's thoughts. He sighed in his heart and adjusted his body slightly to block Mugging's naked body. In this state, even if Rintaro opened the closet, Mugging's body would not be seen. When Mugging realized this, she had a strange feeling about Noah's actions. This man seemed to be gentler than she had imagined. Under such circumstances, both of them were mentally prepared for the closet to be opened. At this moment, bang! On the street outside, a loud crash suddenly sounded and gave Rintaro a fright. What happened? Rintaro was stunned. He quickly ran to the window and looked outside. In the closet, Noah's heart skipped a beat. This was a good opportunity. Paw! In the almost inaudible sound, Noah hugged Mugging and opened the closet as fast as he could. In a flash, he grabbed the clothes that Mugging had thrown on the desk and turned into a blur as he rushed out of the office. Chapter 113. Kacha, Ryutaro, who was looking out the window, heard the door open. He turned around and looked at the door. Mugging, who was dressed in a black sailor suit, walked in, causing Ryutaro to feel somewhat puzzled. Ryutaro wasn't sure if it was just his imagination. He felt that not only was Mugging's face a little red, but her breathing was also a little rapid. Her breasts under the black sailor suit were unnaturally bouncing up and down. Mugen-san. Ryotaro asked in confusion. What's wrong with you? What do you mean what's wrong? Mugen put on a fake smile and looked away guiltily. What are you doing, Rikio-kun? Me? Ryotaro scratched his head and suppressed his confusion. Mugen-san, didn't you hear a loud noise? It sounded like a car accident down there, didn't it? After saying that, a look of doubt appeared on Ryotaro's face again. Mugen-san, didn't you just arrive? Didn't you notice? This. Mugen stuttered, making Ryotaro even more suspicious. An unpleasant feeling rose in his heart. He had a feeling that Mugen-san was hiding something from him today. At this time, a slightly helpless voice came from behind Mugen. I said, if you want to talk, let's talk inside. Don't block the door, okay? Mugen jumped in fright when she heard this voice. She retreated to the side in an extremely exaggerated manner. Ha! Ryotaro was also surprised. Noah. Ryotaro, what are you doing? Compared to Mugen, who was acting strangely, Noah acted as if nothing had happened. He walked into the office with a calm expression as usual and greeted Rintaro. Where's Yenju? Don't mention it. Ryotaro sighed. She said she's going to watch some anime called Heavenly Retribution at home. She's hiding in Fairy Tail and won't come out. Is that so? Noah smiled knowingly. That sounds like something Yenju would do. Right? Seeing Noah chatting with Rintaro as if nothing had happened, Mugen, who had been hiding in a corner, suddenly showed an angry expression. Could it be that the president of Fairy Tail is so arrogant that she can't see the president of our small company? Hearing Mugen's exasperated words, before Noah could react, Rintaro was stunned. What happened to Miss Mugen? Why was he so angry? On the other side, Noah glanced at Mugen, whose face was full of anger. His gaze imperceptibly moved away from her voluptuous body, but his tone could not help but become tit-for-tat. What are you talking about, President Tiantong? Our Fairy Tail is a poor little organization that can only live in the outer area. Naturally, we're not as famous as Tiantong's daughter. I am me. A heaven child is a heaven child. Mugen immediately retorted aggressively and glared at Noah. Don't confuse me with a heaven child. Oh. Noah smiled steadily. Then I'm really sorry. As soon as he finished speaking, Noah and Mugen's gazes instantly met. At first, sparks were ignited like they were enemies. Then, they seemed to have thought of something. One of them had an uneasy expression while the other blushed and looked away. Rintaro was at a loss as he looked at the inexplicable situation before him. If Xia Shi or even Yenju were here, they would definitely be able to see what happened between Noah and Mugen. Right now, they were just cursing at each other to hide their wavering hearts. Unfortunately, Rintaro did not have such good eyesight, so he could only carefully ask. What's wrong with the two of you? Nothing. Noah and Mugen replied at the same time. When they realized that each other had said the same thing, they glared at each other. Don't copy me. I told you not to copy me. Are you doing this on purpose? Noah and Mugen said this at the same time. Therefore, after a while, the two of them stopped at the same time and looked at each other without saying a word, causing the atmosphere to become a little strange. Although Rintaro did not know what was going on, his intuition told him that it was best not to ask too much. That. Ryotaro quickly changed the topic and said to Noah, Noah, why are you here? When Rintaro asked this question, Mugen suddenly remembered this question. Noah also remembered the matter at hand. He adjusted his attitude and looked at Rintaro seriously. I heard from Muri that she gave you some things that were supposed to be given to me, right? Rintaro's expression changed, and it was very obvious. He looked at Noah with a serious gaze. Mugging frowned when he noticed the change in the atmosphere and looked at Rentaro. "Rikumkuen, what's wrong?" Rentaro did not reply. Instead, after a moment of silence, he took out a stack of documents from the inside pocket of his uniform. Seeing that, Noah also walked forward and extended his hand, wanting to take the document from Ryuteru's hand. However, Ryuteru dodged his hand. "Why do you want this?" Rentaro stared at Noah and raised his hand that was holding the documents. "I apologize first. I've already read the contents inside, so I hope you can answer me directly." Noah did not answer immediately. Instead, he secretly sighed in his heart. Did it really become like this? Rikumkuen. Mugging seemed to have realized that the documents in Rentaro's hand were not ordinary. She did not care about what had just happened with Noah and approached. "What is that?" Mugging-san. For a moment, there was a hint of struggle in Rentaro's eyes. However, he gave up in the end and responded word by word. "Here are all the evidence of those in the Celestial Child clan who have positions in the officialdom and committed crimes such as embezzlement and corruption." Tentong. Muging's pupils slowly shrank to the limit and then began to dilate again. Her hands trembled as she slowly reached for the documents in Rentaro's hand. Rentaro seemed to have expected this from Mugging. Just as he was about to withdraw his hand was empty. All the documents were taken by Noah. "Give it to me." Before Rentaro could say anything, Mugging excitedly said to Noah and pounced on him. "Give it to me." Noah took a step back and avoided Mugging's pouncing figure. He looked at Mugging, his eyes filled with confusion at Mugging's overreaction. "What do you want this for? What about you?" Mugging also noticed that her behavior was a little overboard. She adjusted her breathing and asked in a low voice. "What do you want this for?" Originally, Noah expected to be asked this question when he knew that these documents were handed over to Rentaro by Emoji. However, he did not intend to answer. However, seeing Mugging's current state, Noah pondered for a moment before speaking. "If I say that when necessary, I will use these as the last force to topple the Tentong clan, what will you do?" Suddenly, there was a dead silence. "Topple, the Tentong clan," Rentaro murmured. "As expected, topple, the Tentong clan." Mugging also murmured in a low voice. A look of hesitation flashed across her eyes, but it quickly turned into determination. No. Rather than determination, it was more like a sinister darkness. "I can do it too." Mugging took a step forward and stared at Noah. Her voice was so low that it seemed to come from the abyss. "I can also be a force for you to topple the Tentong clan." As soon as this sentence came out, Rentaro's expression froze and he did not react. Noah furrowed his brows tightly. He looked at Mugging, who was completely different from usual. It was as if even his aura had turned dark. He was at a loss for words. After a while, Noah took a deep look at Mugging, turned around, and walked out of the door, leaving only this sentence. "We'll see." Rentaro hesitated for a moment before chasing after him. Mugging remained in the office, looking at the door in silence. Chapter 114. On the busy street, Noah and Ryuteru walked side by side. Noya and Rintaro walked past the waves of people around them. Other than paying attention to the red lights when they were crossing the road, they just kept walking forward without any intention of talking. They didn't even seem to have a destination in mind. They just kept walking forward. Therefore, only Noah and Ryuteru could sense that there was an undetectable heaviness in the space where only the two of them were present. Just like that, after an unknown amount of time, Ryuteru suddenly spoke first. 10 years ago, a protozoan suddenly broke into Miss Mugging's house and ate her parents right in front of her. Ryudaru had said this without any warning at all. As a result, even Noah couldn't help but pause for a moment. After a while, he recovered and continued walking forward without saying anything. At that time, although Miss Mugging was lucky enough to survive, the function of her kidneys was almost completely lost. Until now, she still has to go to the hospital regularly for kidney washing and hemodialysis. Otherwise, even if Miss Mugging didn't die because of kidney failure, she would collapse from the pain. In this regard, Ryudaru didn't seem to want to wait for Noah to say anything and continued talking as if he was talking to himself. Since then, Miss Mugging left the Celestial Tong family and established her own family. She lived with the goal of burying all the Celestial Tong family. That could be said to be the motivation for Miss Mugging to survive in this world. Noah, who was quietly listening to Ryudaru, remained silent, but he didn't stay silent for too long. After a while, he spoke without turning his head. The death of Muging's parents is related to the Tentong family. Ryudaru didn't answer, which could be considered as a tacit admission. In fact, it wasn't hard to guess. When Muging's parents died, Mugging left the Tentong family and didn't want to go back no matter how hard life was. At that time, how old was Mugging? Judging from Ryudaru's tone of reminiscence, Mugging leaving the Tentong family definitely wasn't something that happened recently, right? That was why Mugging didn't want to go back to the Tentong family and didn't regret living a poor life. She didn't even think about the possibility of returning to the Tentong family. This was very controversial. This wasn't a big deal. More importantly, even if this was the case, Mugging still threatened to bury all the heavenly children, burying the people in his family. That would be a big problem. Connecting the cause and effect, it was believed that those who were sharper would realize that the death of Muging's parents was related to the Celestial Tong family. 10 years ago, before the protogut animals invaded the human world and even before they were born, the Tendo clan wasn't an ordinary clan. After the Tokyo region became independent, the Tendo clan became closely related to the government with the support of the Tendo Chrysanthemum Prime Minister. Rentaro looked ahead and said, "For the Prime Minister of the Celestial Tong Chrysanthemum to be able to rise to power and become the Holy Son of Heaven's assistant, his methods are not ordinary. Under his influence, almost all of the famous figures in the Celestial Tong family are in power. However, these people, including the Prime Minister of the Celestial Tong Chrysanthemum, are not necessarily innocent." After saying that, Rentaro turned his gaze to the document Noah had put into a folder. "These in your hands already explain this point, right? I'm just thinking that since so many people in the Celestial Tong family are officials, it's impossible that all of them are innocent, so I asked Maji to help me collect evidence." Noah shook his head and raised the folder in his hand. In fact, those who have read the contents should know that the people recorded in it are basically insignificant people in the Celestial Tong family. The real important people, such as the Prime Minister of the Celestial Tong Chrysanthemum, are definitely not recorded in it. Then why are you collecting these? Rentaro couldn't help but ask. Even if you publicize it, it's just a small blow to the Celestial Tong family. There's no way to hurt the foundation of the Celestial Tong family, right? That's why I said that this is to be used when necessary as a force to overthrow the Celestial Tong family. Noah glanced at Rentaro beside him and gave a meaningful explanation. The hearts of people in this world are very complicated. Most of them are dark and easily bewitched. Some insignificant things will be used when necessary, and that small blow will become a fatal blow. I don't believe that you don't understand this. Ryudaru was at a loss for words, but he quickly followed up with another question in an aggressive tone. Then why do you want to go against the Celestial Tong family? Hearing this, Noah thought for a moment. After realizing that there was nothing to hide, he laughed self-deprecatingly. Because I realized that if we don't overthrow the Prime Minister of the Celestial Tong Chrysanthemum, the children won't have any happiness to speak of. At least, that's the case in Tokyo. Rentaro couldn't help but recall what Noah said before. He, the Prime Minister of the Celestial Tong Chrysanthemum, wants all the cursed children to go to hell, but I want all the cursed children to live a life like heaven. Therefore, he targets all the cursed children, but I want to protect all the cursed children. We just have different standpoints. But, is it really okay for you to do this? Rentaro said this sentence almost subconsciously. Right now, in Tokyo, many places are inseparable from the Celestial Tong. Let's not talk about whether you can overthrow the Celestial Tong. Even if you can, Tokyo will definitely be in chaos because of this. If that's the case, Tokyo will most likely suffer a great blow, and might not even be able to exist, right? Noah finished all the words that Rentaro wanted to say. His gaze towards Rentaro also became sympathetic. You really do look like that young Princess Sama, Rentaro. Young Princess Sama. The son of heaven. Rentaro didn't expect Noah to suddenly give such an evaluation. He was stunned. Why? It's very simple, Noah replied indifferently. Because you are the kind of people who would not hesitate to sacrifice themselves if they can carry out the greater good. Even the people who sacrifice themselves must be the type that will make the people around you hesitate. How is that possible? Rentaro couldn't help but laugh, but his smile was a little forced. It was as if he had been poked at a weakness that even he didn't know about, and was unwilling to admit it. He refuted without thinking. How can I be the type of person who dies early? Maybe. Noah gave a non-committal smile, but his eyes were surprisingly serious. But, I'm different from you, Rentaro. I must tell you that if someone hurts the people around me, then I definitely won't be able to persuade myself to let them go for the sake of the greater good. The fairy tale will always exist for my family and companions. With that, Noah stopped in his tracks, turned around, and faced Rentaro. So, if I were mugging, I definitely wouldn't fall into the darkness and become a vengeful spirit like her. But, for the sake of revenge, I won't let anyone who dares to hurt my family and companions go. Ignoring Rentaro, who was still in a daze, Noah changed direction and left without looking back. I hope you can remember this. Rentaro was speechless as he watched Noah's figure gradually disappear into the crowd. He was still in a daze as he watched Noah's figure disappear into the crowd. Even Noah didn't notice him amidst the crowd. Not far away, a figure overheard the entire conversation between Noah and Rentaro. The figure raised his hand and stared at them. At first, his eyes were blank, but then they turned into a desperate darkness. Even if I fall into the darkness and become a vengeful spirit, I won't let anyone who dares to hurt my family go. I won't let Tendo go. The words turned into a resolute force that drilled into the heart of the owner of the voice. The owner of the voice clenched his fists and looked deeply in the direction where Noah disappeared. After a long time, he disappeared into the crowd. Chapter 115. GUH. In an extremely dark room, Noah pierced a needle connected to a device into his arm and let out a muffled sound. In the center of the device was a culture tank the size of a thumb. The unknown liquid inside was slowly decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the water level gradually dropped. It flowed into Noah's arm through the test tube on the device, then followed the blood flow to Noah's entire body. Noah's eyes had long turned into an ominous crimson color, and his body seemed to be twitching. Every muscle in his body was slightly pulsating, as if something was growing inside, intending to break through the limits of his skin and take in fresh air. He was rolling back and forth. Ugh! Noah only felt that his body seemed to be burning. He clutched his chest, tensed his body, bent his back, and endured as if he was enduring something. At the same time, he continued to let out muffled groans. It didn't take long for the unknown liquid in the culture tank to be completely consumed. Noah's body seemed to have relaxed as he regained his calmness. Phew! Noah, who took a deep breath, straightened his body and pulled out the needle pierced into his skin. After slightly clenching his fist, he frowned and then sighed. As expected, the strengthening of my body by the protozoa virus has almost reached its limit. Relying on his control of his body and strength, Noah found that the strengthening this time was greatly inferior to before. Compared to the growth strength obtained when he first used the protozoa virus to strengthen his body, the strengthening of Noah's body by the protozoa virus was now more than 10 times weaker. The strengthening of other aspects had also more or less weakened. Only the ability of a certain species factor carried by the protozoa virus would still strengthen Noah's body, but compared to before, this situation was becoming less and less frequent. After all, although there were thousands of species in this world, it did not mean that there was an infinite number of them. After more than a year of strengthening, Noah almost possessed the abilities of most species. The species factor carried by the protozoan virus injected into Noah's body could not avoid overlapping. Under such circumstances, Noah naturally would not obtain the same species factor ability. Therefore, the enhancement of the species factor carried by the protozoan virus decreased. He believed that it would not be long before the protozoan virus of this world would no longer affect Noah's body in the slightest. It would not even have any strengthening effects. Noah clenched his fists and felt the difference between his physical strength and the one he had when he first came to this world. He smiled. However, a year of strengthening is enough. I should be content. Looking up, Noah had the mood of saying goodbye soon. He studied the device in front of him that was used to collect the protozoan virus in the air. He put the test tube connected to the needle back into the device, turned around, and walked out of the room. Guild leader. As soon as Noah walked out of the room and closed the door, a petite figure came to Noah with a tray filled with tea. Thank you for your hard work. Please have some tea. The moment he heard the voice, Noah knew who it was. He said with a bitter expression on his face. Xiaoshe, it's you again. Xiaoshe, who was holding the tray, tilted her head and looked at Noah with her big watery eyes without blinking. Guild leader, you don't want me to come. It's not that I don't want you to come. Noah scratched his cheek. But I don't even know that you come every time. At least, when you enter my house, you should have pressed the doorbell, right? Is that so? Xiaoshe's cute but cold face was not moved by the fact that she had broken into someone's house without permission. Instead, she said as if it was a matter of course. But in that case, I wouldn't be able to help you when you need it. Even if you did, you wouldn't tell me, right? Ever since she joined Fairy Tale, Xiaoshe had been living in this state. She did not mention who she wanted to partner up with and form a police team again. She also did not mention that she wanted to go to school, play games, and live a stable life like the other cursed children. Instead, she would appear coldly by Noah's side from time to time and help when Noah needed help. According to Xiaoshe's own words, she wanted to help Noah. Furthermore, it wasn't just a little bit of help. Instead, he hoped that he could solve Noah's problems and help him greatly. Therefore, during this period of time, Xiaoshe would always find an opportunity to get involved in small matters such as pouring tea and water, or major decisions related to Fairy Tale. And it just so happened that this 10-year-old girl had an IQ as high as 210. She did everything properly, making it impossible for people to find a reason to reject her. Noah was actually very grateful that Xiaoshe helped him deal with a lot of things, making him feel much more relaxed. But, if Xiaoshe could get rid of the habit of breaking into Noah's house whenever she felt that she could help, then it would be perfect. But that was not the most important thing. The most important thing was, what kind of help are you getting into my bed every night? Noah could not help but ask this extremely serious question. Now, every night I think that someone is trying to sneak up on me, so I wake up in the middle of the night. The first time, I almost made a move on you. That would cause trouble, right? I didn't know that you were so vigilant. If I wanted to sneak in, at least I wouldn't disturb your rest. Xia Shi looked like she did not understand and looked at Noah. As for how I can help, it should be easy to guess, right? Sorry, I really can't guess. Noah said without hesitation. What kind of help can you get into my bed? Hearing this, Xia Shi did not hesitate to answer. Warm the bed. Ha! Noah doubted his ears. What? Warm the bed. Xia Shi replied with a calm face. Although my body is relatively small, I still have body heat. I should be able to warm the bed for you, President. Noah opened his mouth, but in the end, he could not say a word. After a while, he sighed as if he had surrendered. I understand. I'm really sorry to trouble you. It's nothing. Xia Shi met Noah's gaze, her eyes showing some excitement. Then, tonight, you don't need to warm the bed. Noah suddenly grabbed Xia Shi's slender shoulders and said to her seriously. So, you can stay at home tonight. You don't need to come over. Do you understand? This. Xia Shi still wanted to say something, but in the end, she was suppressed by Noah's aura. Somewhat unwillingly, she lowered her head and her voice became disappointed. I understand. Good girl. Only then did Noah satisfactorily pat Xia Shi's small head. He picked up the tray in Xia Shi's hand and drank the tea. Oh right. At this time, Xia Shi suddenly spoke. President, there is something I need to report to you. Noah's hand movement stopped, and he looked at Xia Shi. What is it? Just now, a request was sent to Fairy Tale, and it specifically requested that you, the guild leader, carry out this mission. Xia Shi put down the tray in her hand and walked to the side of the table in front of the sofa. From the pile of documents on the table, she found a piece of paper and handed it to Noah. I think this request is quite special. President should take a look at it yourself. Noah took the request from Xia Shi's hand. After glancing at it, he was stunned. Guard mission. When he saw the name of the client on the request, Noah was stunned and said in astonishment. Holy Son of Heaven. Chapter 116. Tokyo District 1, Holy Residence. Under the lead of the guard, Noah walked in the corridor that seemed to be emitting light. He was trying to figure out why Holy Son of Heaven personally issued the commission and asked him to carry it out. Noah admitted that his relationship with Holy Son of Heaven was not good enough to let Holy Son of Heaven specifically pick him out of countless groups of police in the Tokyo area when Holy Son of Heaven needed a guard. It was better to say that because of the relationship between Tentong and Holy Son of Heaven, the relationship between Noah and Holy Son of Heaven may be worse than it seems on the surface. After all, in the several meetings before and after, Noah did not give the other party any face because of his identity as the supreme ruler of the Tokyo area, and the several conversations were basically thorny. In addition, Holy Son of Heaven also wanted to get bullets from Noah to use in the great cause of saving the whole world, but Noah directly rejected him last time. Logically speaking, Holy Son of Heaven's impression of Noah should be very bad. In this way, why did Holy Son of Heaven directly appoint Noah to be the guard when he needed it? Noah had been thinking about this question since he received the commission from Holy Son of Heaven and came to the holy residence, but he had been unable to come up with an answer. If it were someone else, Noah would have just rejected the request and gotten it over with. However, even though Noah did not say a single good word to the Holy Son of Heaven, he did not hate her. In fact, he even had a good impression of her because of the new law on primitive animals that she set up. Therefore, Noah decided to come and take a look for the time being. So, under the lead of the guard, Noah came to a spacious room with simple decorations that looked like someone's suite. Lord Holy Son of Heaven is dealing with affairs. We have already informed other guards to invite Lord Holy Son of Heaven to come here. The guard who led Noah here bowed to Noah and made an inviting gesture. So, please wait here for a while. It's okay. Noah naturally did not lack this patience and nodded to the guard. I will wait here. Thank you for your understanding. A smile appeared on the previously strict and courteous face of the guard. After bowing, he slowly retreated and closed the door behind him. At the scene, Noah was the only one left standing. Looking around the vast room in front of him, Noah found that not only was there a sofa, a small round table, and a tea room, there was even a bookshelf, a dressing table, a piano, and a luxurious double bed that occupied a large area. Originally, Noah thought that this was a reception room, but now, it seemed more like the boudoir of some rich young lady than a reception room. Realizing this, Noah couldn't help but laugh. Could it be that this was the princess's room? While thinking it was impossible, Noah, who was amused by his own thoughts, glanced around the room again. Then, his eyes fixed on the piano in the room. Today, Noah did not bring his magic knight sword. Speaking of which, after coming to this world where the power level was much lower than Noah's original world for more than a year, Noah could not find the opportunity to use the magic knight sword apart from training. Thus, today, Noah only brought guns and ammunition, leaving the magic knight sword at home. He could be considered to be going into battle lightly. Lifting his feet, Noah walked to the piano, stretched out his hand, and lightly brushed the keys on the piano before sitting down. In the past year, in order to be able to perfectly integrate into this world, Noah spent a lot of effort. When he first came to this world, Noah buried himself in books almost every day. Through books after books, he taught himself languages, knowledge, history, and even various unorthodox subjects. For example, architecture, engineering, science, literature, and so on. Noah more or less touched upon them, trying to understand everything in this world as quickly as possible. Of course, this included music. Closing his eyes, Noah flipped through a piano score in his mind and recalled the way to play the piano. After a while, he stretched out his hand and put his fingers on the piano. Ding! Following the extremely clear sound of a note, the atmosphere of the scene not only completely changed, but also filled with a dreamy atmosphere. Following this, a very beautiful melody echoed in the vast room. From simple notes, it gradually merged into a smooth sound of the piano. The pleasant sound of the piano continued to resound, accompanied by Noah's fingers lightly tapping on the piano keys, turning into echoes like flowing water, and also turned into ripples that continuously lingered in the air. Noah's eyes were tightly closed. In his mind, in his heart, he could not help but think of that noisy guild. That was the hope in Noah's heart. That was the place in Noah's heart that belonged to him. That was Noah's final destination. That was the place that Noah missed all the time. Thinking of those active and noisy companions. Thinking of those cute and annoying family members. Thinking of those nostalgic and charming smiling faces. She recalled the bright and proud tattoos on her body that showed that she belonged to the goblin. Unknowingly, Noah's heart had been filled with thoughts of each and every one of them, which made the piano music also brought along a feeling that could not be ignored and was extremely straightforward, which could tug at people's heartstrings. Until a long time, clap 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 clap, the sudden applause awakened Noah, who had closed his eyes tightly, and made Noah come back to his senses. It was not until now that Noah realized that his performance had already ended. And at the door of the room, the Holy Son, who was wearing a white suit as usual, stood there. It was not an exaggeration to say that it could be said 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 that it was amazing. A more sincere smile hung on her pretty face than before, and her slender hands, which were wearing white lace gloves, were also clapping rhythmically. I didn't expect President Noah to be able to play the piano, and play so beautifully. It's really amazing. As the supreme ruler of the Tokyo area, although the Holy Son was relatively young, but he had seen a lot of big and small scenes. However, even so, the Holy Son of Heaven still used the evaluation of too shocking. It was conceivable that this beautiful girl liked Noah's piano performance very much. This also made Noah smile slightly and stood up. Don't get me wrong, I'm not that good at playing the piano. For the piano, I'm only limited to playing the piano. Just now, I just happened to be in a good state to play the piano better. If it was in the past, being able to smoothly play the whole song would be considered a success. Even so, the fact that President Noah just played a very beautiful song will not change. The Holy Son, with a much softer expression than before, approached the direction of Noah. I like that song very much. It's an unexpected gain to be able to hear such a song. From the tone of the Holy Son, Noah did not feel the slightest falsehood. That is to say, what the Holy Son said now was from the heart, there was not a bit of falsehood. However, what Noah said was also completely true, there was not a bit of falsehood. If it was in the past, Noah definitely would not have been able to play as well as today. Just now, it was just a coincidence that he missed fairy tale in his heart, which made the sound of the zither carry a rare sincerity. Otherwise, Noah's performance would not have been able to receive a good evaluation from Elysium. Noah had no choice but to shrug his shoulders and change the topic. Let's put the piano matter aside for now. Today, I'm here to hear about the commission. At this point, Noah looked into the Holy Son's eyes. Can you tell me in detail? The elegant and quiet smile on the Holy Son's face slowly disappeared, replaced by the usual holiness that kept people 1,000 miles away. President Noah, I don't know if you have heard of the name Chiwa Zhongshuan. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.